Hello everybody, and welcome back to my channel. I'm FlyLoris737. What's up everybody? Welcome back to this stream. I hope a little bit better than my previous one. Today we are parked in Atlanta for live real flight or a simulated real flight with an A319, the Toliss 319 latest version. We're gonna go from Atlanta to Key West, down to Florida. Quite nice weather all along the route, some scattered CB all around, but we can manage this situation absolutely without any problem. Today we're gonna fly November 357 November Bravo, a 19 years old aircraft that was originally bought by Northwest Airlines, and then Delta got it when they acquired Northwest Airlines, and now it has been upgraded with Wi-Fi and a renewed cabin for some more years of service with Delta Airlines. Without further ado, the aircraft has been serviced, and let's jump into the cockpit and start up. Here we are. I'm flying from the right hand side today. Since I'm a real world first officer, I am getting more comfortable flying from the right hand seat instead from the left. And let's see how to power up the aircraft and start our flight. First of all, we are using the AviTab tool to check our flight details. To begin with, we are parked at stand Bravo 11 in Atlanta. We're gonna expect stand number 2 in Key West. Our departure time is 16:27 UTC, so it's in 27 minutes from now. It's a tight turnaround for a major carrier, not for a low cost. We will try to do our best to be on schedule today. Here we go. The aircraft has already been refueled. 14,600 pounds was our minimum fuel on board, and yes, we have it, 14,600, and the passenger count has been close to 125, which is it and matches. So the aircraft is completely loaded. Without further ado, let's start. Once again, I have to admit I'm not a real Airbus pilot, I'm a real Boeing pilot, so any procedure, any SOP I'm not following, please be patient with me, and keep in mind this is just for entertainment purpose. It's a simulation and of course it cannot replicate any training video. So first of all, let's jump into the overhead. 26.6 we have in the batteries. 1 and 2 are coming on. The external power is available, and we connect it. Here we go. Powering up the aircraft. Now the screens are coming into a 40 seconds self-test. In the meantime, we go ahead with our flow in the overhead. Let's do like that. Let's remove the fuel truck and the catering, since we assume they have already been done. This allows us to turn the seatbelt sign to on, and again, no smoking, emergency exit light. We can turn off the dome lights, not needed. Nav light, the crew supply, oxygen on, ground control on. Let's start aligning the adheres and switching on the fuel pumps. Some tests now. APU fire test, engine 2 fire test, engine 1 fire test, and cargo fire test. Perfect. Third audio control panel on, even if it's not really simulated. Let's turn on some brightness or brighten up a little bit our screens here. It's full day, or yeah, it's around 11:30 in the morning local time at the airport, so quite bright, and we need to turn everything on. Audio control panel, switching the radio correctly, and even here we don't need the floodlights. We want the integrated light to be 100%, or at least this is my preference. And also the audio control panel number 1 is coming on. That is done. I want the constraint and as well on the captain side we want the constraint with a minimum range, and now it's time to start with the FMC. Let's go into the MCDU and check it. The database is correct. Here I am back. Sorry for this long delay. I am sure, and I apologize for this. I hope you can just go forward with the video for this long waiting part in the middle. I'm so sorry for that. Let's go ahead without further ado and start our McDo fill. So in it, let's go from Atlanta to Key West. This is the stored route. We can align the IRS. We don't have any alternate. Our flight number today is Delta 1491. 1491. We have expected cost index of 10. Cruise altitude is planned 390, and we have top of climb temperature is going to be ISA -2, so we're going to have -54. Cruise wind for the cruise phase expected to be 26117. Like that, and then we have a few data to put in from the ISCS. As we said before, we have zero fuel mass 117.6 with zero fuel weight CG of 26.5. Block fuel 14.6. Now we have to adjust slightly the fuel figures because we have a few more data to take into consideration. First of all, we have a route reserve planned for 35 minutes, so we have 3.1 of reserve. And we have a final reserve 45 minutes at 3, so it's equal about 3.4. 3.4, that gives us an extra of just 300 pounds, but we're gonna use this for the SID and the arrival into Key West. So let's go and check the flight plan for the departure. Let's assume that we have picked up the clearance, the ATC clearance from the data link, and we have been cleared to Key West via the SMALT 2 departure transition wallet, and we're going to depart from runway 27 right. So 27 right. The departure is going to be this SMALT 2 with transition wallet insert. Checking for any discontinuities, there is none, and then we go for the arrival in Key West. Now the procedure in use is the RNAV 27, no star, and we are going to fly via Carno, no transition insert. So now, if we take a look at our navigation display in plan mode, we can maybe a little bit better check our route. It goes all the way, but as you can see now we go to Jigit and then back to Carno. So we can assume we fly Cart, then Carno, like that. It's just an assumption. Then later on in a real flight we should check if ATC agrees what we have planned or no. and of course we should comply always with ATC instructions. So the flight plan looks good right now, at least so far. Go back into the MacDo and we copy the active flight plan. We change the destination in the secondary flight plan to Atlanta again, and we prepare a route that we should fly in case of some problems during departure, for example an engine failure. I'd like, since I don't have any special charts for engine failure in Atlanta, around 27 right, sorry, I'm gonna grab the 27 right ILS. Here we go. Let's assume that we're gonna just flying the missed approach procedure. So we're gonna fly to duty. And we're gonna hold there. We're gonna hold there, 345 inbound with a left turn. It's a non-standard holding. Right. Then we check for the performance page. Back into the AFCS, let's check the performance with configuration 1 and configuration 2. We are not obstacle limited here in Atlanta, so we don't have any problems. Also taking off with flaps 2, we have the same flex, which is 64, but lowest speeds. I would go for config 2 departure, so it's gonna be config 2, trim up 0.7, flex temperature 64. We're gonna accelerate at 4,000 feet, as Atlanta has an elevation of about 1,000, and speed's gonna be 128, 128, and 130. Good. So far, so good. We have completed our MCDU entries, and now what we're gonna do is to brief slightly our departure. So we are parked at stand Bravo 11 here. We're gonna push back on run 3 and then moving towards the south to join taxiway Mike eastbound to holding point runway 27 right here. The calculations are made full length. I am pretty sure that if we take Mike 18 for departure, we are perfect without any problem or limitation. Despite in real life we should go for a specific calculation for departure from this intersection, but for simulation purposes only, we are assuming that Mike 18 is enough today for our takeoff. So that's it. Let's see, our procedures are going up here. Everything is getting ready. I am just refreshing the latest weather to see if there is any change here. Altimeter still 3009, wind 330, 19 knots and 9 degrees. So it's pretty much same conditions. Our SID is going to be the SMILS 2 departure toward the south, so we are taking off towards the west 275 and bound slow. Then is going to be Riggs, reeved at 250, then proceeding to SMILS with the transition to Wallet, and our top altitude is going to be 10,000 feet according to the plate. So 10,000 goes here, and let's assume that in the pre-departure clearance the ATC gave us a squawk 5462. That's it. Pre-arming the weather radar, and let's go back. At the outside, everything is ready. Let's remove all the equipment and start. Whoop, this has gone away. Sorry for that. My mistake. I was thinking that the GPU was not connected to the ground services here, but unfortunately is. So let's get it back. Okay, so I thought it was only an animation, but it was really connected to the Toliss GPU. So let's start the APU in the meantime. Sorry for that. Whoops. Okay, we are starting APU, and very soon we are going to see how the situation is with the doors. I heard some doors closing in the background, so I guess a few of them, or even all of them, should be closed. Okay, GPS primary, it has been brought back. Flight plan is okay. Performance are still in the memory. And let's check the doors. Yeah, just the cabin door is open, all the others are closed. Very good. So we can hide all the ground equipment, and this time also remove the GPU for real as soon as the APU is ready. Almost there. Okay, APU available. External power is removed, APU bleed is on. We close the main door, remove the chocks, and removing the jetway. Now it's time to call the pushback. It's gonna be a straight pushback to the line, and the tow truck is coming perfectly. So the tow truck should be coming really soon. Here we go. And for the time we can run through the pre-flight checklist to the line. Cockpit preparation is completed, signs are on, adheres nav, fuel quantity is 14,600 pounds and balanced, altimeter 3006 set, windows and doors are all closed. Before start checklist completed to the line. We are ahead of schedule. This is so nice. They are ready to connect downstairs, thank you. The cockpit door goes to normal. And they are placing the pin in place. For those of you that do not know what the pin is, it is a mechanical iron element that goes inside of a latch into the nose gear that excludes the hydraulic system from the steer of the nose wheel, so that the pushback truck can freely move the nose gear meanwhile they are pushing the aircraft. As you can see here, it says nose wheel steering disconnect. This means that the pin is in place and the steerings, this one for the first officer and that one for the captain, has no effect on the nose wheel. They are ready, we are ready, the clearance we have, we are clear to push. So we go beacon on, we go transponder alt report off, and read the before start checklist below the line. Logbook is checked, the takeoff data are set, beacon is on, transponder is set, parking brake is on, before start checklist is completed. So we start the timer for the total time, all doors are closed, they are ready, releasing brakes.
Starting pushback, and you may start engine.
We are going to start engine number 2 and number 1 in sequence. Good. I'm so sorry for this. This is an audio problem. I need to... Here I am. I had to restart my audio master. Sorry for that. So starting engine number 2. Looking at the N2. Rising. Fuel flow, EGT, N1. I don't know if on the Airbus the startup procedure or the startup sequence is silent or not. On the Boeing 737 it is. We just call out the items that are not in the parameters expected. Good. Parking brake set to park. Thank you very much. Engine number 2 is stable. Starting engine number 1. Always keep an eye on the startup sequence, of course, and the hand on the start lever or the engine master, as it's called on the Airbus. The startup sequence seems to be nice and smooth. Engine number 1 is available. So to the pushback track, cockpit to ground, we had 2 good engine starts. You may disconnect, show us the pin in the front. Have a very good day and thank you. In the meantime, to save some time, we go ahead with the flow. Call for flap 2. Thank you, have a very good day. So here we go. They are moving away from the aircraft, expecting to see the pin really soon. Here we go, pin is seen. We go checking the status page into the ECAM, and then we go for the after start checklist. The after start checklist says NTI is not required, ECAM status is checked, pitch trim is 28%, yes, set. Radar trim set, speeds set, flight instruments, we need to check them, yeah, they are all checked. After start checklist is completed. And then of course we do the flight control checks, full up, full down, full left, full right, rudder, full left, center, right, center, checking the brakes, and of course we need our trim up 0.7 set. Now the checklist is really completed. So for taxi, what we are going to do is to turn left and take Lima 5 uniform to Mike 18 holding point, runway 27 right. Right side is clear, left side is clear, parking brake is off, taxi light on, and off we go. meantime, takeoff configuration is normal. So here we take a Lima 5, so it's going to be straight ahead. And then we take first left here, a little downhill. Good. And for those of you who are wondering what are my settings and what scenery I'm using, this is the Nimbus Atlanta version 2. This is Xplane 11.55 running on Vulkan, and pretty much all settings on max, more or less. We have objects to maximum, and then we have visual effect to HDR. The anti-aliasing is set 4 times, and the texture quality is set to maximum. Actually, my system is a little bit strange. I know that on high-end rig the difference between Vulkan and OpenGL is not that much. I'm getting more or less this, and I'm running on Vulkan. I'm getting almost the same performance with OpenGL, a little bit more stuttering sometimes, but Vulkan on my rig, even if it seems smoother, sometimes it has a little bit of lag. Like when I change the views, it seems that for a while there is a little bit of static before it gets to the new view. In OpenGL I don't get this kind of behavior, and so that's why sometimes I like to try, and sometimes I really prefer to fly using OpenGL instead of Vulkan. So approaching holding point Mach 18, let's go ahead and do the before takeoff checklist to the line. Flight controls checked, briefing confirmed, flap setting config 2, ECAM memo takeoff 1 blue, so we are waiting for the cabin to be ready. Let's assume that they are ready now, so takeoff no blue, and cabin crew, we call them to secure them for the departure. So before takeoff checklist is completed, to the line, and we have been cleared for takeoff. Runway 27 right. Wind is going to be 330 degrees 19 knots, is going to be an RNAV to slow, clear for takeoff. Here we go. As you can see again, the view changed, gave me a little bit of stuttering here as well. So, before takeoff checklist below the line, engine mode selector normal, TCAS TARA, minimum fuel is checked, takeoff runway is confirmed, 27 left, packs, yeah, we're gonna keep them on as for the takeoff calculation. So here we are, good to go, fully aligned, ready, yes we are all ready, timing, stable, set takeoff thrust, manual flex 64 SRS and runway, auto thrust is blue. .100 knots checked, can really feel the wind. V1 rotate, positive climb. Get up. Quite strong crosswind, huh? Nav. Level climb. Thrust climb. Now, of course, the engines are going to climb power, but we are continuing to keep the V2 speed, as you can see here, because we have a higher acceleration altitude. Autopilot 2 on, climb, and now we are accelerating. Very nice. F-speed is passed, flap 1. Temperature is 6 degrees. There are some clouds around. Preventively, I'm using engine anti-ice on. There's still some clouds around. S speed has passed, so flaps 0. This is different from Boeing to Airbus. In Airbus, I have seen they say, or I heard they say flap 0. In Boeing, we say flaps up. So flap 0. Spoilers are disarmed. After takeoff, checklist to the line. This is silent checklist. And after takeoff, checklist completed to the line. Engine anti-ice off. Very good. And we are continuing to climb to 10,000 according to the SID. Let's take a look at it. Here we go. So slow, then read 250 knots. We can continue climb even higher. Let's assume that no traffic is reported. We can climb all the way up unrestricted flight level 390, which was our cruise altitude. Actually 370 is optimum. We'd like to follow the McDo in what it says, so let's stop level 370 at least for the moment as new cruise altitude. $10,000 passed. It's time to turn off few lights. And the situation seems pretty good with turbulence, so we can also try. Actually, the pitch is a bit high. If we release the passengers in the cabin with this high pitch, might become uncomfortable. So I guess it's much better to wait a little bit more, accelerate first, lower the nose, and then we can release the passengers. I guess it's a way of comfort, or at least in my company, we are using it as a way of comfort towards passengers. So in all the procedures out of Atlanta, all the speed limits, as you can see, are 250 knots until all these points. It's kind of a band here where all the points are almost aligned, and speed is kept 250 knots until all of these. And then we can accelerate. It's about 4.5 miles to go for the acceleration, even though we are more than 15,000 feet. But that's no problem. We can compare our arrival into Key West, checking our distance here, 555 miles, more or less. Later on, we're gonna do some consideration about the time of arrival into Key West, if we are matching the schedule time or not. So 250 limits is going away in a few seconds. Here we go, accelerating. We have a pretty low cost index, so our climb speed and our cruise speed is not going to be that fast actually. So now that the nose is lower and we have passed the transition altitude, we can go standard 1, 2, 3 and 4, and we can turn the seatbelt sign off, and the checklist below the line is completed with battle reference cross-checked into the standard mode. Very good. And off we go. Now that there is a little bit more of free time and less workload than in the terminal area for the departure, we can just have a look at the times, the scheduled time compared to the actual time. So we are expected to arrive in Key West at 1820 UTC. Our report says that we're gonna land 1805, so it's like 15 minutes ahead. Let's assume 5 minutes for taxi, and that is going to be our arrival time. So expecting to be at the gate about 10 minutes ahead of scheduled time. Nice. There's a little bit of turbulence up here, slight turbulence. There is a 65 knots crosswind from the right. It's not that much, but this might turn into a jet stream really soon. Wing view. We are overflying the southern part of Georgia before entering into Florida. Climbing performance are nice, and as well the back flow to normal. I don't know why it was left too low, but anyway. And we can lower a little bit the cockpit temperature. At least this is what I like to do usually in the cockpit I fly. I prefer to keep the temperature slightly cooler. Temperatures outside are quite good. We are running under ISA -2. I am going in the outside view. I'll try to lower the volume a little bit. Watch out for your ears. This is the view. Oops, here there is a mistake in the ortho photo, a gap in the ortho, I guess, this white area here. These clouds are the enhanced skyscape. As well as the sky colors are belonging to the same add-on. So going back in, we have almost completed the SID, and the top of climb is getting closer. Let's enjoy some views from the back of the cockpit and from the dash cam. So nice. And now the wind has increased. It's like 79 knots crosswind. It should be almost like this all the way down to mid-Florida. We are running on ISA condition right now. I'm monitoring always the temperatures because of the climb capabilities of the aircraft are changing accordingly to the temperature, of course, that there are outside. This is not real a concern in turbo jet or jet aircraft in general, or turbofan aircraft, but it might become a concern on a turboprop. Some kind of aircraft like ATR. I am also rated on the ATR 4272, and on these aircraft, of course, the difference in temperature can become significant, also for a huge difference in performance. Sometimes even climbing with ISA +5 in an ATR 72 is or can be a nightmare, and climbing with the same weight in ISA -5 is going to be much easier and quicker. The ATR shares quite a few things with the Airbus, so like the FMA are almost the same as in the ATR, and the overhead philosophy with the start cockpit philosophy is the same, is shared between Airbus and ATR. Now we have a nice and big layer of clouds almost all the way to the horizon, especially towards the east and south. This morning there was like a front passing over Georgia and Florida going southeast, and I guess this is what was in the tail of it, the remaining part of it. There should be nothing more coming, at least I hope. We can expect some residual CBs in northern Florida around Jacksonville area, but it's going to be not that much. Definitely not that much. Most probably we're gonna leave them on our left hand side. It was ISA -2, okay. Probably I've made a mistake before, I was thinking, but okay. Into the init page, it's -56. Okay, might be, or might be not correct. Let's cross check it here. Top of climb, minus, okay, it's not reported in this kind of format. The outside air temperature, okay, but okay, it doesn't make a huge difference, I guess. So yeah, that's good. And of course we expect to land with 6.6 in Key West, which is a good amount of fuel actually. It's a good amount of fuel. We don't have any alternator, but it's a good amount of fuel anyway. We can, with that amount, we can go without any problems to Fort Lauderdale, Miami, or even we can go to Fort Myers, or even Punta Gorda, actually. We are approaching level 370. This is a call out made by the pilot monitoring to notify the pilot flying that we are approaching the altitude selected on the autopilot on the FCU. I guess it's called on the Airbus. In Boeing aircraft, it's called MCP, Mode Control Panel. If I'm not wrong, in Boeing aircraft, sorry, in Airbuses, the oral altitude alert is working only when the autopilot is disconnected. In Boeing aircraft is always active, with autopilot and without autopilot. So now we expect to see some FMA changes here, approaching the selected altitude. We have Mach, Alt Star, this is called Alt Star, like an altitude capture or altitude acquire, and now it's Alt Cruise. So we are cruising 370 with the speed, Mach number, and the lateral navigation, so Mach Nav managed directly by the MCU. So TCAS goes to below at this point, and we are nicely cruising at 37,000 feet after like 20 minutes and 45 seconds of flight. Our way to Key West is pretty long, so I'm gonna take some breaks, and I'm going to see you very soon for the next step of our stream. Here we are back on cruise, 37,000 feet, on our way to Key West. And still cloudy. It should be cloudy all the way down to Key West, almost crossing the border between Georgia and Florida. Became smooth. We were talking about temperatures before. Still now the ISO deviation is going to be, is 0. So it's minus 56 the static air temperature, and minus 56 was what was expected and put into the MACD during the pre-flight. So since my knowledge of the Airbus is not that huge, I know a little bit of Airbus, but I am not really type rated on this kind of plane. I'm rated on the Boeing 737 and on the ATR, as I mentioned before. I can slightly, or as a beginner, a beginner, explain a little bit of what we have in the cockpit, the instruments available for the pilot. Of course, talking about a really basic level, the main difference between an Airbus and a Boeing is the flight controls, or are the flight controls. As you can see here, there is no control column, no handling wheel, but there is the side stick. The side stick is the heart of the Airbus because this aircraft is working with fly-by-wire system. It was the first commercial airline designed with fly-by-wire system. It means that there are no mechanical connections between the control in the cockpit and the flight controls that are outside, like in the aileron or the elevator in the tail. This of course allows to have a lot of space, available space in front of both pilots, since there is no control wheel in the middle, and Airbus thought about putting a nice tray table here, which is foldable. It must be fold below 10,000 feet for takeoff, landing, and taxi, but in cruise can be extracted and becomes a really nice area where to write down things, put objects, eat. Even as a tray table to eat is very comfortable. Uh, yeah. Instead, Boeing pilots like me needs to hold a classic tray table on our legs meanwhile we are eating. It is like that. Then the layout is pretty similar to the 737 aircraft with 6 screens, LCD or CRT. These are the LCD1, the simulated LCD, and also the standby instrument are the new electronic one. They are not mechanical anymore. Older Airbuses have mechanical instrument. I don't know this one in real life. This in real life is a 19-year-old aircraft, so it might be that it has mechanical standby instrument and still the old CRT screens instead of the LCD one, but I'm not 100% sure about that. It's just a deduction based on the age of the plane. Then the 2 screens in front of each pilot, these are replicas of course. Captain seats on the left, first officer seats on the right, and the 2 screens here are the primary flight display and the navigation display. The primary flight display shows the basic information for flight, and they are all presented in the same way in all the aircraft. we have the artificial horizon in the middle of this screen, which indicates the pitch and the roll of the aircraft compared to the horizon. The two green bars here are called flight directors bar and are showing the wheel of the autopilot. So these two green bars are showing what the autopilot is commanding the aircraft to do. On the right hand side of the artificial horizon, there is the altimeter. The altimeter is then followed by the vertical speed indicator, where the green line is the index, and when the green line goes up, these are positive rate of climb, 1000 feet per minute, 2000 feet per minute, 6000 feet per minute, and when it goes down, the aircraft is descending, going down minus 1000 feet per minute, 2000 feet per minute, 6000 feet per minute, etc. On the left hand side of the artificial horizon, there is the airspeed indicator. This is like a more complex airspeed indicator than the one found in the basic single engine aircraft because um, it has a sort of extra information included, like the stall speed is included, the minimum clean speed is included, the command speed is included for the auto thrust, and the overspeed area is also included. And the speed is represented both as indicated airspeed here and Mach number here. This Mach number, of course, is a percentage of the speed of sound. It means that we are running 0.743 or 0.744 time the speed of sound. Here we have the compass, quite basic compass, with the indication of the track here, the yellow line, and the heading. The difference between the track and the heading is due to the wind, of course. And yes, so this most probably is the other way around. So this is the heading actually, and this is the track. Yes, it is like that because we are on heading 173, 172, and we are performing a track to the left. So the track is on the left of the aircraft. So about 160 degrees is the track, 172, 173 is the heading to counteract the wind force from right to left. And on top of the primary flight display, we have what is called FMA, Flight Mode Annunciator. We have different boxes here. On the Airbus, the left one is for the speed. In this case, it says Mach because we are running depending on the Mach number. This is for altitudes. So the vertical modes, they are that are dealing with the vertical modes of the aircraft, like descending, climbing, keeping a steady rate of climb or rate of descent, etc. We're gonna see it a little bit more in depth when we're gonna descend. Then we have the lateral modes, the navigation mode. In this case it says nav because the lateral mode of the aircraft, the navigation of the aircraft is coupled to the MACD, to the flight management computer. So it says nav, but it can also say heading if I'm manually acting the heading here on the autopilot, it will change into heading mode. Or if I'm using like old navigation systems like the VOR, for example, it will change into this kind of mode. The other screen is the navigation display. It is called, of course, navigation display because of its information. The information contained in this screen are primarily navigation information. There is, of course, a map with the depicted route on it. The aircraft symbol is of course representing our aircraft, and our exact position is represented at the center of the cross, where the representation of the fuselage and the wings of the aircraft meets. Then we have the active waypoint we are flying to, in white. In this case is Duffy, with some information about Duffy here on the top right corner, like the track to Duffy 161, which matches the green diamond here. The distance to Duffy 33 nautical miles, and the time to Duffy 1712. It's like 1707, 1708 now, so it's 4 minutes more to reach Duffy. Then we have all the other waypoints written in in green. These are the waypoints of our route. Distance rings. Here we have some other navigation information, the ground speed, the true airspeed, and the wind velocity, the wind vector. So we have kind of 4 types of airspeeds in the commercial aircraft. We have the Mach number, we have the indicated airspeed, we have the true airspeed, and we have the ground speed. What are the differences between these? Okay, the indicated airspeed is what the pilots are seeing on the airspeed indicator. So this is the this is the indicated airspeed. The indicated airspeed is very good and reliable at low altitudes for takeoff, landing, and for maneuvers at low altitude. Let's say below 26,000 feet, flight level 260. When we climb higher than that, our indicated airspeed becomes less and less because the air becomes thinner, colder, and more compressed. So to better represent an airspeed at high altitude, we have what it's called TAS, T-A-S, true airspeed. The true airspeed is an airspeed that best matches the speed of the aircraft at high altitude without taking into consideration the wind effect. The ground speed is the true airspeed with the wind effect taken into consideration. So for example, now we have a true airspeed of 427 knots, which means 427 nautical miles per hour, and a ground speed of 452 knots. So the ground speed is slightly higher than the true airspeed because the wind is blowing slightly from the tail. It's blowing 274 degrees 84 knots. So blowing from this point towards this direction, it actually helped the aircraft accelerating into the air mass. So the aircraft that is moving at 427 knots is actually really moving at 452 because the wind pushes the aircraft faster into the airstream. Of course, if the wind would have been from, for example, 180 degree, so if it would have come from this direction towards this direction, then we would have had a ground speed lower than our true airspeed. It sometimes happens. Sometimes happens then that in some cases on some routes the wind changes in order to have it on the head, so it slows the aircraft down, and sometimes this condition, this precise situation may lead to higher than normal or higher than standard route time in some cases. Of course, airliners, companies and flight dispatchers, so those who are preparing the flight plans, the briefing packages to deliver to pilots and the route they're going to fly, the flight dispatchers are carefully looking into this situation if they are causing serious delays. So being a flight dispatcher is also important and a key job in this, because a good flight dispatcher can make the company save money, save time, have happy passengers, and of course happy passengers are most likely taking the same airline again in time. Then what do we have? The Mach number. The last speed, that's the Mach number. Of course, since it's not easy to deal with high speed at high altitude, then what has been thought is to represent the speed as a percentage of the Mach, where Mach 1, of course, is the speed of sound, and commercial jetliners are subsonic aircraft, so we are running at a percentage of the speed of sound. So now we are running about at 75% of the speed of sound. Of course, we have a maximum speed that we can reach that is represented on the airspeed indicator by this red line, which is called Barber pole, and this represents the MMO, the Mach number never to be exceeded. What happens if we reach this speed on our aircraft? Then the airflow passing over our wing and under the wing that are creating lift will become supersonic, and this will create shock waves on our wings. These kind of wings are not designed to sustain shock waves, so most probably this kind of situation is causing a stall of the wing, loss of lift, and the aircraft will start to lose altitude for sure. So it's really important also to not exceed the maximum Mach number in cruise. Then we have a few other information down here. We have, of course, a chronometer here that I started at the takeoff roll. So it's 48 minutes and 27 seconds that we are in flight. And we have a few other informations like the navigation aids. One VOR, which is called Oscar Charlie Foxtrot. It's here represented on the map. It's 22 miles away. And this should be the VOR number 2, the other navigation radio, which is not tuned at the moment, so it's not showing any station or any distance from the station. A few other symbols on the navigation display is this arrow here, which is representing our top of descent, so the place where the computer, the MCDU, as calculated, we should start to descend in order to reach the prescribed procedure altitude in our destination airport. We can also add few information on this screen, like this, for example, terrain on the navigation display. This represents the terrain overlaid to the route. Of course, cyan is the water, green is the land. Here we have a representation of the highest land, highest terrain in the map area, which is 300 feet. These are hundreds, these are thousand, these are tens of thousand. Of course, if I am changing the scale of the map, the terrain is changing as well, as you can see. And despite terrain or apart from terrain, we can also put weather information on the navigation display. I don't know if there is any weather to represent. Yeah, a little bit here. As you can see, there are some weather clutters here. Most probably are the CBs I was talking about a little bit earlier, and they are just marginal to the weather radar area. But it's very important to have a weather radar on board of our airlines in order to avoid thunderstorms or other really severe weather phenomena like hail or thunderstorm, heavy rain, these kind of things. When they are not needed, like in this case, where the weather is nice outside, especially during daylight, the weather radar is usually kept off. Then moving to the center, these are shared instruments. Because are in the center, they share the same information to both pilots, first officer and captain. They are called ECAM. There is an upper ECAM and a lower ECAM. The upper ECAM is showing engine information. Engine information are represented as N1, which is the percentage of the revolution per minute of the fan. The fan is the intake of the engine, the huge intake area of the engine. EGT, exhaust gas temperature, expressed in Celsius. N2, in percentage, is the percentage of the turbine. The turbine is the rear area of the engine. Fuel flow, in this case expressed in pounds per hour per engine. So we are burning around 2220 on the number 1 engine per hour and 2210 on the right engine per hour. Then we have fuel on board, the total quantity of fuel on board. This is the flap indicator. We're going to have a better look at it during the approach into Key West. And here are two boxes where we have advisories information. On the left hand side there are advisories information about the cabin or the status of the aircraft. On the right hand side there are information about the phase of flight or the system that are being used. For example, if I'm using the NTI system, it is shown here. If I am turning on the landing lights, for example, it is shown here. If I'm using the speed brake, for example, it is shown here. This screen cannot be changed, so there is no way to show other information than this on the upper ECAM. The lower ECAM is totally another thing. The lower ECAM can go into automatic mode. Now it is in automatic mode. It shows cruise since we are in cruise phase. But it can be driven to show specific information like engine, bleed air, pressurization, elec, hydraulic, fuel, APU, conditioning, doors, wheels, flight controls, and status. Of course, it has left most of the time it has been left in cruise or in automatic mode, but specifically the crew can check some specific information, like for example if they'd like to check the conditioning system of the aircraft, how is it running, or the pressurization system, how are the positions of the outflow valves for the pressurization, what are the situation of the flight controls, or if the APU is really shut off during cruise, these kind of things. Pilots can always check what is going on here, And the lowest part of the lower ECAM always shows temperatures, time in Zulu, in Universal Time Coordinated Time Zone, and the gross weight, the actual gross weight of the aircraft. Then we have the two MACDOs, the two flight management computers. They are linked but independent. Thrust levers, radios, engine masters, and then we have spoilers or speed brake and flaps command. This is the lever to move the flaps, so the hyperlifting devices situated on the trailing edge and the leading edge of the wings, and the indication of motion of these devices commanded by this lever is indicated in this area of the upper ECAM. Then we have the standby instruments here, and then the same instruments are replicated for the captain. Up here we have the autopilot in the center, which has the capabilities of managing speed, lateral mode, so adding, and altitude. And the two commands that are of course even here replicated, one for the captain and one for the first officer, for the controls of the navigation display. We can change the scale, the range, we can change the information displayed there, we can change the altimeter setting as well, and so on. Talking about the overhead panel, this panel here is what commands all the systems of the aircraft. And it is quite different from Boeing philosophy to the Airbus philosophy, but among all Airbuses, as among almost all Boeing's aircraft, it's 95% similar, even more among Airbuses. The layout of it is almost the same from an A319 to an A380. Maybe just the A350 is a little bit different because it's newer aircraft. But talking about Boeing's, for example, I am rated on the 737, and the overhead panels on the 737-300 is almost identical to the Boeing 737 MAX. So talking about an aircraft born in the 80s, and talking another aircraft born in 2015 is almost the same overhead panel. I hope to be able to do another stream on the 737 where I can show you a little bit more on these aircraft and be a little bit more specific and go in depth with some system descriptions. But yeah, on the A320 family, the navigation instrumentation is always here, like the system used for navigation is top left. Then we have some commands for the flight controls, commands for the evacuation in case of evacuation on the land or water. We have some emergency electric power, like the ram air turbine command, for example. GPWS, recorders, oxygen control, call for the flight attendant, and wipers for the screen, for the windshield. Sorry. Then we have fire indication. We have all the hydraulic system here, fuel system here, elec system here, air conditioning, anti-ice, external lights, internal lights and signs, APU command in the middle, cabin pressurization, and then on the right we have another audio control panel, another series of flight controls, and then we have some conditioning and ventilation area, cargo smoke indicator, ventilation, and the manual engine start. As you have seen before, in Airbus, the startup of the engine is accomplished automatically by moving the engine start selector to ignition start, and then moving the master from off to on, and then it starts automatically to perform the procedure for the start. Sometimes the auto start is not available due to some defect or an MEL that is open on an aircraft or malfunction, and then of course pilots need to start the engine manually. The procedure is accomplished more likely a Boeing aircraft, actually performing a manual start and activation of the starter from the overhead, and then moving the engine master when the fuel is ready to be injected into the engine. This is a special procedure or a non-normal procedure for Airbuses, but it's just a kind of standard for Boeing aircraft. So we are approaching our top of descent, less than 80 miles. I'll be doing a quick break once more and then be back for the approach and landing into Key West. So here I am back, and let's get ready for the approach and landing into Key West. First thing first, I'm going to check the weather to see how the situation is there, if there is any runway change. In this case, no. There is no runway change. Wind is 310 degrees, 3 knots. 10 miles visibility, clear sky, 26 degrees, altimeter 2999. So we're gonna have now an advice on the MACD about enter destination data. What does it mean? It means that the MACD needs information to calculate our landing performance. So we're going to performance and the approach phase. We need to insert the altimeter setting, so 2999. We need to insert temperature, 26 degrees. The wind, which is 3 knots. And then, according to the expected procedure for Key West, we are looking for the RNAV approach runway 27. So we have the airport and we have the approach RNAV GPS 27. No star for this, so we are coming in from Carno, Gusel, Burpee, KC for the approach, and our minima, assuming an LPV procedure is carried out, is 253 feet there. Then we're going to do a quick briefing of our route. We are using our flight plan into plan mode. We're going to scale about 40 miles to check what we're going to do. So this is going to be an RNAV approach GPS runway 27 in Key West. Plate is 12-2, 9th of July 2021. It is based on the wide area augmentation system channel 82 100. Final approach course is 273. At KC we must be at 1500 feet, LPV minimum 253 is set. Airborne elevation is sea level, MSA is around 2750, 15,000 feet all around. It says use normal altimeter setting, if not proceed use Key West, the Boca Chica field altimeter setting. The vertical guidance system and the RNAV flight path are points. Then from the 27 helicopter visibility is not our concern. Pilot control lighting is not our concern. We are coming from Carno, which is here, then flying to Gusel is correct, then Burpee, correct, KC is correct. Then we're gonna have a 3 degrees glide, here we go, down to the minimum of 253, correct. The sequencing is right. Then, after landing, it's pretty short runway, 1500 meters, it's 5,000 feet. Lane 27, vacate Alpha 1, all the way back to the terminal. That's good. And speeds. Speeds for landing, we are going to check our performance approach phase. We have 128 the BRF, so the approach speed is going to be 132 with full flaps, of course. This is good for Key West. Perfect. Others consideration for this approach, of course. What we're going to do, climb 2400 direct ATNAM and by 003 degrees track to Chets and hold. And we are expected to see it here as well in blue. Here we go. Climbing 2400 ATNAM, Chets, hold at Chets. Here we go. With a speed of 193 knots. That's good. Our arrival is expected to be on time. 10 minutes to top of descent. It's almost time to start really for descent, since there is no restriction in the altitude to be kept. I would start descending to flight level 200. So unwind the altitude window in the flight control unit and push it will initiate the descent mode. The aircraft now is going to descend with 1,000 feet per minute steady rate until it will meet the vertical path to land or to continue to descend in order to be at the prescribed altitude at the prescribed point. So in this case, for example, it has a profile saying you must be at 1500 feet at KC. And to be at 1500 feet at KC, you need to descend with this rate at this point. And this symbol on the navigation display is representing where the actual vertical path of the aircraft is matching the calculated one to be at KC at 1500 feet. So let's continue to descend. And of course these other arrows here represent where we are going to be at flight level 200. So the selected altitude is going to be here. As you can see, as we are approaching the arrow, the path is coming. This green dot is going to be centered, and when it's going to be centered, the rate of descent of the aircraft will increase. To keep this, as you can see now, it says, the FMA says thrust idle, the throttle out retarding to idle, and the rate of descent is increasing. So the objective of the flight management computer is to have throttle in idle during descent, speed as expected, so in range, and the rate of descent that is coming out from having the throttle in idle and needing to be on the desired path. To conclude our briefing for the approach into Key West, I would say that I will use 50% reverse or more, and I will use auto brake medium for landing, since the runway is really short. The A319 is the biggest aircraft that is flying in real life to Key West. Here we are around Naples. Yeah, this is Naples area. There should be the Naples airport somewhere around here. Most probably is here. Yeah, here we go. Here it's actually the Marco Island Executive Airport, and the Naples airport is slightly northeast here. Yeah, here. This is the Naples airport. Yeah. Now we are leaving the coast, the shoreline, to the open water. For our landing. Watch out for your ears, I'm going outside. From here, of course, there is a better view of Naples and the surrounding area. This is Marco Island. Shoreline. Here it starts the Everglades National Park. And then open water all the way to Key West and then Cuba. We are proceeding nicely on the profile. As you can see, if we go here, we check our vertical deviation, it says just 20 feet higher than the calculated profile, so it's just nothing. And we are approaching our flight level 200 mark, so I'm going to lower the altitude to 10,000. very nice, nice view here of the Everglades National Park. Here. For those of you sitting on the left hand side, and for those that are sitting on the right side, there is almost nothing but water, unfortunately. Yeah, this is the look to the left. So, to better see how the screens are changing during the descent, now we can see that the automatic cruise screen is reporting a cabin vertical speed of minus 360 feet per minute, and the cabin altitude, as you can see, is descending. It means that, of course, the outflow valve is helping the aircraft air, the air inside of the fuselage, where people are located, to be at a pressure higher than the outside, of course. It means that we are actually at 23,500 feet, but the cabin inside of the aircraft is at 5,200 feet. This is achieved through the outflow valve. If I go to the pressurization page more deeply, we can see that the difference of pressurization between outside and inside is 6.2 psi. The vertical speed of the cabin is minus 360 feet per minute, meanwhile we are descending at about 1600 feet per minute, and the cabin altitude is 5020 feet descending, meanwhile we are at 22,300 feet. And as you can see, the outflow valve here is slightly open. When we will be on the ground, this green line will be almost all the way up. It means that the aircraft has almost or has completely depressurized and the outflow valve is completely open. Open water ahead of us, clear sky, nice weather. Beautiful day in Key West. We can also have the airports on the navigation display. Here it's the Marathon Airport or other airfields here. What it's not realistic in this simulation is that when I push airport, all airports are picked up here. In the real aircraft, only airports that have a paved runway with a minimum length required by the aircraft itself are showed up. Here, unfortunately, all airports are shown on the navigation display. Then we have this constraint button. When I push it, it makes some extra info appear on the navigation display, like 3000 plus here. It means, if you remember our briefing before, at GoCell, our altitude was 3000. So in the vertical profile, the flight management computers knows that here we must be at 3000 feet or more. Then, let's see if I zoom a little bit more, if I can show you. No, I cannot. But then later on there is written 1500 here, and it's this point here at Burpee. We're going to be at 1500 right here. I will bring this up later on when we will be closer to those points. Very good. We are approaching the transition level, where we need to change the altimeter setting to the actual local altimeter setting of the landing airport, in this case Key West. Key West altimeter now is 2999. So we push, 29.99, set, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, and we can run now through the approach checklist. Approach checklist by reference set. Briefing confirmed. Seatbelts on. Minimum set. Terrain and weather radar not required. Cabin crew secure. Approach checklist completed. Getting closer to 10,000, we are now descending to 5,000. This is called continuous descent standard approach, or continuous descent, CDA, continuous descent approach. And it is widely used worldwide in almost all airports to save fuel and reduce noise in the areas around airports. And to make this, of course, the aircrafts need to descend at idle with no engine power unless idle, and taking advantage of this calculated path from the flight management computer in order to be at the prescribed point with a prescribed speed and a prescribed altitude without using the engine power. It is possible most of the time to do it, not every time unfortunately, especially in congested area or in some areas of the world where there is no radar control, so air traffic controllers are not able to have a live situational awareness of what's going on, and this of course delays the aircraft and makes everything a little bit more difficult. But these areas are becoming more and more rare nowadays. So let's have a look at the Florida skis from the outside. I'm going out in 3, 2, 1 now. Yeah, you can see a few of them approaching, and QSD somewhere down there. $17 miles to Brussels, and after Brussels we can continue descent to 1500 feet. Here we have another interesting representation on the navigation display, this magenta dot. This is the deceleration point, so where the aircraft knows to reduce speed from the above 10,000 feet speed to the under 10,000 speed, which is the 250 knots. You will see when the center of the aircraft has passed this magenta dot, the speed reference will drop here to 250 knots. It will happen very soon. So 10,000 are almost coming. The magenta dot is here, and the speed reference has gone to to 50. Now the profile is going a little bit up, the rate of descent is decreasing, and the aircraft is automatically slowing down to the prescribed speed. We have another deceleration point, which is this one, represented by a D. This D is the deceleration for the landing phase, where the aircraft needs to decelerate in order to be at the approach speed at the prescribed point. So, enjoy the keys. Nice water. So let's continue down 3000. On the left hand side here there is, this one, Marathon is here with its airport here. And down there we can already see the landing runway. We have a military base, and then there is the Key West airport itself. So that one was the military base, that one is the military base. Turning right towards QSO, and then it's gonna be to Burpee at 1500 feet. As I was mentioning before, here we have the other constraint, the altitude constraint, 1500 feet. Nice. Here we can continue descending 1500 feet. And then really soon you will see that the aircraft will be joining approach phase. Here, as you can see, we already have the RNAV 27 preset for the approach. And soon we will also have to start to configure the aircraft, extending the flaps. Very nice view here. Now as well, passenger sitting on the right hand side can enjoy this beautiful view of the Florida Keys. Passengers sitting on the left can only see open water. As you can see, we are now about 5 miles from the D, So 5 miles to the deceleration point where the aircraft is going to activate by himself the approach phase. This is the phase where the aircraft is going to be scheduled to reduce its speed at 132 knots for the approach. We can also manually activate the approach phase here. Sometimes it's needed, especially if we are under radar vectors and we are not following the planned route on the navigation display. But in this kind of situation, you will see when we are going to pass the D mark, then the aircraft, the flight management computer is going to automatically activate the approach phase. And when it happens, the speed will drop to 132 knots. 135, okay, 135 is okay. The vertical deviation comes into place to remind us that we're going to fly an RNAV approach. The speed is dropping. These two amber marks here represents the flap speed, the maximum flap speed, the green dot, the minimum clean speed. So now what's going to happen is that the airspeed is continuously dropping all the way down to 135, but the systems of the aircraft are made not to break the minimum clean speed, since we have no flaps extended. So now that the airspeed is approaching the minimum clean, you see the engine that are spooling up to keep the minimum clean speed, keep us on the path for landing. Now it is time to start to configure. So pilot flying is calling for flaps 1. Flaps are being extracted, and as you can see now the speed is dropping again to the S speed, the slap speed. Configuration 1 for landing on the Airbus is on the slant configuration, so only the devices on the leading edge of the wing are coming out. And now it's time to go quicker and quicker for the approach. So we are coming in, selecting approach mode. Final approach mode is armed, flap 2. The speed is dropping to its commanded 1, always taking into consideration the limitation of the speed. It's dropping again. Now we are into the final approach. We can already select the missile approach altitude for this procedure. It was 2,400. So 2,400 set, passing 2,000, gear down, putting some lights on, and also the cabin needs to be ready. Flaps 3. Flaps full, arming the speed brakes, and now it's only landing checklist to go. Landing checklist, auto thrust speed, Boron altitude is set 2,400 feet, and ECAM memo landing no blue. Landing checklist completed. Good to go. This is the airbase I was talking about, and we are established. 1,000 feet, we are stable and continue. going to disengage the autopilot, and yeah, there is quite a lot of trees here at the threshold. I'm not sure they are realistic, but let's try our best to land. Disengaging autopilot.
100 above.
Contact.
Minimum.
200.
Visual. We are going slightly below the profile.
50, 40, 30, 20.
Retard.
10.
5.
Spoilers. Reverse. Decel. 80 knots. 60 knots. Perfect. And auto brake disarm. Brake fan on. Welcome to Key West. Vacating at the end. Via the Alpha 1 taxiway. Taxi speed is reached